saddest thing when babies are mauled to death by dogs. And especially when it's the family dog. Baby, yes, Nora Sharp. Their family dog, in fact, yes, mauled her completely to death. I haven't known anybody where that has personally happened, and yet you come across people in life that I've in fact came across people that have knew other individuals that were mauled half to death, and yet not completely, grown men and women. Stuff like that, that's a disaster, especially when it's a baby, and especially when it's a woman and you done carried the child for months on end with the pain and all that you endure giving birth to the baby, right? Thinking you're gonna live a lifelong wholesome process with the baby, and then tragedy awaits, and it's the dog that you love. Because you got people out here, a lot of people out here that in fact consider their dog just as much as their baby is. They treat them one and the same. And yet sometimes dogs have a tendency, they can act so real and lifelike, almost human-like, despite animalistic tendencies being there, where they get carried away playing with the baby. They see the baby as one of them, and sometimes they take it too far. And yet for this situation, it was never stated completely what the situation was, because all is still under investigation. So yeah, Pennsylvania, 19-month-old Nora Sharp was mauled to death the week of November 4th, 2018. Once again by the family dog. She was attacked outside of their home and died from her injuries after being rushed to a local hospital. The dog ended up being put to sleep. That's how it usually happens. I kind of wonder, I'm going to always question, well, not just her situation, but many dogs, how was that dog treated, handled, or was it ever mistreated and handled? And how aggressive could that dog be? And not only that, what was the interaction between the adults, and possibly if there was other children in the house, what was the interaction with the dog to begin with, for even the dog to want to take a chance and maul the baby? Sometimes aggression in dogs come from other people in the house and not just the dog attacking, and then the dog sometimes has to suffer by being put to sleep. That's one of the number one lessons my mom taught me, and me having a German Shepherd for almost 16 years. The things that you learn. So the dog once again had to be put to sleep, and then of course young Nora with the attacks. I just stated that about being rushed to a local hospital. Yet there's no full details totally on what kind the dog was, as in the mixture of the breed. The dog was in fact a mixed breed, but it was never fully stated. So 10 or around 10:15 p.m. is when baby Nora was attacked by the dog. And as all was taking place, one parent was in fact home as all was going down. So usually when there's another parent in the situation is to ask, well, how did that parent feel once they found out? That ain't nothing. I'm saying that the phone calls with these situations when it happened or as it's happening, the phone call. You got one parent at home that has to possibly remove the dog's mouth off the child. And then you got another parent that's away from the home that the one parent at home has to call that parent that's away from the home and let that parent know what happened to their child. Some people, in fact, go nuts on the way home driving, screaming and crying because you just don't know. As in that parent not knowing how the baby is or whatever. So the one parent home had found a way to free the baby from the dog. And when officers arrived, both dog and the baby were separated, each pulled apart from one another by the one parent. Cause of baby Nora's death issued by a York I'm sorry, because I be pausing. Sometimes you hear things. Who don't hear things outside the microphone and the headphones? So, yes, once again, I'm sorry. Cause of baby Nora's death issued by York County coroners. When it comes to that, the coroner's office and all the rest. The cause, in fact, was multiple injuries due to dog attack. Her death ruled in the end accidental, if you're asking, dear viewer, right? Nora's family are still being questioned. And they should be, because you want to know the reason why was the dog acting in the way that it was. Sometimes dogs can be feeling sick or tired. I learned that from my mom too. Shouts out to my mom with that. Because I have a German Shepherd and know that's the canine beast, and they use it for canine work, right? And yet we don't know what type of mixture breed this dog was. But sometimes dogs could do certain things, snap at kids or rip kids apart because the dog sometimes don't feel good or is sick. And sometimes young children or young babies have a tendency to pick and fumble with the dog, and the dog don't feel good. So that's why too the family, well, not that's why too, but that's why they should be more so under not investigation, but more so question further. No charges have been brought against the family, but you want to see, was the dog sick? Was the dog ill? Did the dog have other issues that's unspoken of? Even dogs have personalities, characteristics to them. Sometimes they don't always want a baby in their face. And yet sometimes babies just want to play and pick and have fun with the dog, and the dog don't want to be bothered. So sometimes, yeah, I keep saying sometimes, right? Sometimes. Dogs just, they don't. My dog, in fact, bit like at right before he died, before we put him to sleep, right, because he was in old age, bit me right on the back of my leg. I had a mark about big as my hand on the back of my leg. It was like attacking itself, and yet I'm not a baby, right? But he was letting me know he didn't want to be bothered, because he was on the way coming close to death. I think he could sense it was coming or something. So yeah, that's got to be in question of what was going on with that dog. And the pit bull thing, that's going to be the number one question when people ask. Maybe the dog was pit bull mixed with something. They can be very loving as well. It depends on how you raise them, with all that grooming. So police have to look further. I said that Nora, she was born premature. That may or may not have been a complication in why she died too, because sometimes premature babies, she was 19 months old when all this in fact occurred, right? But premature babies sometimes are not always able to withstand the blows and the blunt force of, say, bite marks, despite it not being blunt force with the teeth and all that. She was born premature and yet was loved by many in the family. She loved making other people laugh outside of herself. You wonder, how can a baby do that? Yet many babies can. Look at her smile. And she loved to make funny faces. She was also a daddy's girl. That is off the hook. You don't never know it. You gotta always, anytime you have babies that small, be always on alert, as in watchful in the environment with them, because you don't know the dog's intentions. Sometimes even dogs can feel jealousy. They can, and they'll sometimes attack either the child or the child's mother or father. Dogs get jealous too. Dogs can get possessive of babies and say be all up on the baby, and yet don't want the dogs, my alarms, dogs can get where they get possessive, where they're all up on the baby, and yet they don't want the mom or the dad to be on the baby. Dogs can do all type of things. There's all type of ways to walk around this situation to try to see what even that what could have occurred with the dog. The dog, I already said what I said, and trying to think. What could have been the situation with that? And not only that, where was the parent at in the room, or was the parent out of the room? I think when a baby is 19 months old and there's a mixed breed of any kind, you should never leave the dog alone with a baby at that age, 19 months old. The bigger dogs, I'm saying. Sometimes the little dogs too, and yet I'm thinking a baby that age, say if it's a Chihuahua or something small, little pesky dogs, whatever, right? I'm sure a 19-month-old baby possibly would knock the dog upside the head and let that be that, and the Chihuahua will possibly run off or something. And yet with a big burly dog, German Shepherd, Rottweiler, I don't know if they have too many of those nowadays, the Rottweilers, depending on the city and state, pit bulls, people go for them because they're muscular, and then they have a tendency to overpower babies, right? Those type of dogs, breeds, it's hard to sometimes get them off a baby. Hell, even at local zoos, it's been known that when you look at tigers, but that's at the zoo, and that's kind of a different situation. When people get to talking about, well, domesticated animals and this and this and that, and then when you look at zoo when you look at animals that's in a zoo and all this, like being behind bars, and how you walk up to the window and you tap on the window, and then you got a lion that's trying to chew at the baby despite the baby being on the other side of the glass. The animal instinct and the reason for such when a baby is in the environment. There's a pack mentality. You got the alpha of the pack. That's usually the two adults that run the house, or one or the other, depending on a mixed breed dog. That dog may or may not see them as the alpha. That dog might in fact want to be the alpha. You don't know. Nobody knows. I don't even know. So I'm questioning. I just don't know. But with the pack thing, once again, because when I go back to that, and the baby being so small, how oftentimes dogs like to take young children as being part of the pack, as one, and they get frisky with the baby, and not in a abusive manner, but more so in a delightful manner, like, well, I love this baby, we're a part of the pack. And then they treat the baby like they treat their own. And some will say, well, they treat the babies, human babies, dogs treat human babies, part of the pack, as if it's their own. And sometimes it's gentle, but sometimes less gentle in being frisky with the baby. And then they get carried away with biting and all the rest. And remember, a young child is able to withstand that 4 or 5 years old or older child more so than a 19-month-old when it comes to mauling. Mauling means full-blown attack, right? And yet, if no parent was really in the room at the time, or maybe that it was really never really stated, it just said, as I stated, completely, because remember, all this is global news, as in it's around outside of Discovery as well, able to be found and located. Never really stated specifically how the parent and the child was pulled apart, how close the parent was actually in the room. So if it's some bite marks with the child being mauled or whatever else, right, that stands death, right? But to be 19 months old is to say that baby already looked frail in the photo to begin with. She's small, right? Small, limber, whatever, right? And so what what's the term for it? What's the difference between a mauling and severe bite marks? even if a dog was to play wildly with a baby as if it was his own baby. Because I've seen some animals play very wild with their own babies. You got all type of animals, cubs and all the rest that tossing around of that, right? What animals? Because it's all animal instinct with it, and it's wild animal instinct. Throwing cubs around, pushing babies. I mean, you see all type of. That's what's so interesting. And no, it's not funny, but you just see all that, and all I can see with this baby is maybe it was a mauling, and which led to a tragic death, or maybe it wasn't. With the animal instinct of even playing with the games with that animal to baby and pushing and shoving. I'd be like, some of the stuff that you see these animals do to their babies, and it's not really attacking, and yet it can come across that way while you're watching it. You're like, man, how is that baby able to withstand that? Because it looks like abuse. That baby right there in the photo wouldn't have been able to, because how small she is. And tender, not just in looks, but just the body, right? I could just see that. So no one knows, and I just figured I would, decipher down with that sort of thing. So leave me a comment in the comment section and tell me what you think and feel. Differentiate. I tried to get to that word, and yet it was completely close, but not all the way right. I'm kind of late with saying the word term. I just rewind the tape without the button or remote control, right? But yeah, viewer, leave me a comment in the comment section and let me know what you feel about that. Do you think this was a play accident at play? The animal got too aggressive, and yet all is being termed a mauled. Yes, mauled, a baby being mauled to death. Maybe it wasn't. That's why it helps to question the parents even further on that, is in where was you at? Where were you at as it was taking place? That is off the hook. Because see, if that was a wild animal, as I say, that wild animal would have kept eating the baby further, and you would have known precisely that the baby was in fact mauled to death. And yet for a dog to do something like that, whether playful or purpose killing, dogs purposely maul people and kill, right? It's to say, well, it's not enough. There's not enough information with anything. It just, the world that we live in, it just makes more sense. The separation, that right there is the key to know how all was separate. I threw that in myself in relation to the baby being separated from the parent. It's not precisely known whether the mouth was actually pulled off the child. Maybe I need to go knock on their door. The parents, I'm saying, and asking, because, yeah, to get to the bottom, because that just, come on, man. So the ID logo sits in the up left corner, right? What is live now, you ask? Live now is The Perfect Murder. Recommended for you. Shouts out to Paula. People Magazine investigates. It's always the best with that. It is. People Magazine as a whole. A crime to remember. Each one of these, in fact, hold a description. And to cut the description short is so much more better with even that, as in when you, word stuff on this, and it's too long, as to say some of that stuff is going to be edited out. Most evil ranked. You can, in fact, add to your favorites by clicking the play, not the play button, I'm sorry. The plus button. My words. Blood relatives. Shattered. Either one of these you zone into by scrolling over is going to show you. Unlock episodes body cam. To get an audio visual preview is to click the play button. Add to watch later, click the plus sign. Gypsy's Revenge, Season 1, Episode 1. On last night, what was on last night, you ask? You're gonna in fact put your provider, subscriber, however you choose to word that sort of thing, to sign in. You're gonna do that to gain access, because this is in fact padlock locked. Add to watch later, click the plus sign. Either one of these. Unlock series, same thing. Each has a description. ID Go original series. We're on investigation discovery.com. Not investigationdiscovery.com. I need to start saying that right in the mid of these videos, so that way you guys know. And yet I haven't been saying it, but to change things up is to do just that. Shout out to Lugenda. What is with my words? Lieutenant Joe Kenda. Can't even get my words out. That's how it always happens. Disaster in the mouth. Support to save the children's hurricane relief efforts. Donate is to click donate here. Crime feed news. Shouts out to Granny with that sort of thing. Mugshot and everything else. Let me leave it alone. To gain access to that is to click within here. You're going to be directed to the outside. Yes, crime feed news. With that. Did I say like side? Did I say any of that? Like, subscribe, ID in the Discovery channel. Yes, ID in the Discovery channel. The links are provided below. Get that Discovery Go app as well as that ID Go app. You might want to get those two, combine them together and make them into one. I failed to say that in the beginning of the video, and yet nobody called me out. Possibly because nobody can hear me till later. That is so funny. It slipped my mind. Along with everything else. That's just to say it's time to sign off. So I think that's all to be said for now. Leave me a comment in the comment section as I stated before. And I'm gone.